Hi, welcome to today's Lightning Talks. I'm Nikki and I work in product marketing here at solo.io. I'm excited to welcome our first Lightning Talk speaker for the day. So please help me extend a warm welcome to Nathan Fudenberg, who will be showing us how to use AWS Lambda serverless functions and how they've changed in Gloo Edge 1.10. Over to you, Nathan.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, everyone, for coming to this lightning talk. Today, I'm going to be talking about, once again, AWS Lambda in Gloo Edge 1.10 in particular, but also sort of how we integrate with it in general. I hope you'll pardon at the top of the screen. There's some extra things that sort of show what's to come, a taste of the demo, just some technical difficulties around that. So please ignore that, and we're going to go through it. So yeah, I'm Nathan Fudenberg. I'm a software engineer here at solo.io on the Gloo Edge team. Today, we're going to be going through 4 different portions to sort of tell you about how we interact with AWS Lambda and how that's changed. So first, we're going to be covering the basics, as I like to call them. So what you should know before really digging into this, where historically Gloo Edge has sat within this, and then sort of progress more deeply down the road of how Edge has been in the space. Then we're going to get into what's changed. So what you can be looking forward, or not even forward to, it's now actually accessible. And then finally, we're going to finish with a little demo of one of the features that I think personally is really, really awesome. So, fantastic. Great. So basics. What pieces of the puzzle do you need to know to sort of understand what we're doing here? Well, first, this is a talk in AWS Lambda. So you probably want to know what that is. So AWS Lambda is a serverless offering from AWS that is seeing a ton of usage across the industry, whether that's for small jobs or for scalable serverless functions. There's a lot of different places and avenues to use AWS Lambda, and you can really empower developers with it. So you might want to know a little bit about that. Second, Envoy proxy. If you've been listening to the rest of the Gloo Edge track, you're probably familiar with Envoy proxy. But if you aren't, once again, this might be sort of hard to follow. Then finally, Gloo Edge. So where do we fit in with our config discovery in general, then also the translation into Envoy and what pieces we slot into Envoy, in particular for AWS Lambda. Cool. So why might we care, once again, about Lambda? So this is a slide over from Datadog's State of Serverless, and just showing just how explosive this growth has been, right? And these Lambda functions can either be invoked from a developer's laptop. It can be invoked from an EC2 instance where you have some microservice running. It could be, in particular, when we focus in this case, in an EKS or Kubernetes pod, whether that's truly in the EKS itself or living somewhere else, right? It can be from any of those places. So by default, great. You have all this functionality. You can make all the different versions of it. You can slot in some observability around your Lambdas. So you can do a lot of things there. But if you have to implement that every time, well, you're losing all the great things that a proxy or load balancers might sort of help you with, right? So some sanity checks, some of those extra services. So that's where we come in, right? It's how do you treat Lambda like everything else and do it in a safe way? So fantastic. So Gloo Edge. How are we helping you with that historically, right? And once again, This is not with a 1.10 thing. This is just sort of staying where we have been slotting in. So great. So the first portion is invocation. So with Gloo Edge, you can have your routes on Envoy proxy that have been configured via Gloo, and you're getting all the great things that come with Envoy. Whether it's any filters before or after, whether that's with Gloo Edge's mod security, if you want to put transformations around it, everything you're used to in Gloo Edge, you're able to apply to any of your Lambda calls. Second, as with Gloo Edge and Kubernetes, when looking for Kubernetes resources, Gloo Edge can actually discover new Lambdas or Lambdas within a space. So if you have an upstream and it's pointing to say US East 1 with some privileges in AWS, so some region in AWS, Gloo can actually go and populate that list with all the Lambdas that are there that given the permissions you've granted to Gloo Edge, whether that's via static credentials or via STS or any other space like that, we can actually automatically populate those for you. And then finally, the thing that is perhaps, in my mind, one of the most special parts about Gloo in particular is credential management. So we support static, credentials. Fine, great. You can put those on a given upstream, or you can link. We can have credential discovery. So if you're in an environment that, say for example, if you're in EKS, we can pull that and use that to populate things. And then finally, through the mutating webhook that is in EKS as of a few versions ago, it's sort of default. So Amazon, if you've annotated, which we'd sort of take care of if you install with the right Helm configuration, then Amazon will update a token for us to use to get short term and therefore sort of not create a long-term credential, which as we all know can be problematic. So before we move on from this, one of the reasons why I said credential management is to some degree the Gloo Edge secret sauce is that it turns out Envoy proxy has in its upstream implementation an AWS Lambda filter as well. So just to make sure that we're not confused throughout the rest of this, this is Gloo's so the solo custom filter. And the reason we have that is pretty much at the end of the day, because credential management is not fully baked there. It's static credentials rather than being able to work with this STS assumption via mutating webhook, which mutating webhook, while native in Amazon in EKS, this is cloud agnostic, right? You could, if you wanted to, do the exact same thing as the AWS mutating webhook, and then the Gloo code will all work with that, right? So you have your JOT and you can authenticate there, though it is easiest with EKS. Awesome. So that's Gloo Edge as it was. Now, we've seen recently a lot of customers, a lot of people who have been using AWS Lambda for quite a while, and they've maybe put it behind the ALB. They have some of the good things, but not everything a proxy, like a full-fledged proxy like Envoy proxy can give us. And it sort of works, but it does have a lot of vendor lock-in. It's kind of hard. The other thing they can't do is go across account. So this is the feature that I think is most exciting from 1.10. We've now added the ability to actually assume roles and interact across account boundaries, which is not super trivial, to say the least. So this actually illustrates what your environment might look like with discovery reaching out to the region to identify what lambdas exist, and then also be, configuring Envoy such that it can actually make calls to any of these. Fantastic. So just to summarize some of these updates we've seen. So we talked about cross account, right? We haven't really talked about ALB migration. So in that first slide, we were saying here's an ALB space or potential setup with ALB for calling Lambdas from some Kubernetes microservices. But now we've actually made it easier to migrate from such a setup, whether that's the new flag called unwrap as ALB, which will mean that you don't have to conform to the really strict formatting requirements that an ALB AWS Lambda invocation requires. So if you're migrating from ALB, you can start with that format, and then as you clean your Lambdas or make new Lambdas, you can sort of untoggle that so that they can have easier payloads, and you can once again use all the great stuff that comes with Glue, such as transformations. Finally, I just want to throw it in there as well. We've done some nice polishing in Glue CTL, so it's a little bit cleaner when you're interacting with some of these STS AWS definitions. So upstreams that are using STS will now report more cleanly, for example. And now I wanted to give a quick demo of what we've sort of done. Namely, I really want to focus in on this cross-account Lambda invocation. So I'm just going to do that quickly. So we have in one account this Lambda, which is just going to uppercase and tell us that it's from a cross account. And we've set up in this other account the right permissions, as well as also, I'm skipping over some of the extra permissioning, and this is not the most fine-grained, and i.e. not probably exactly what you'd use for permissions in production, because these are very permissive, but associate our OIDC provider. And then just to show, oh, 1 second. So to show what we have here, I've set up an environment whereby we have a Lambda upstream that is within our own, and it's actually discovered a whole series of functions. And then I've also set up one which is cross accounts. So let's see that in action. And so first I'm going to illustrate, we've set in place a runtime guard, so you can actually revert back to the old functionality at any time if you so desire without a restart of Envoy proxy or proxy. So then if we are to call our normal Lambda, should work fine. So it's come through and we've given it ABC and it's come along and uppercased it. But because we made this call to, I've already port forwarded, I should have stated that, but I did a runtime modify to disable this functionality. Our cross account won't work. It claims there's nothing found. And now if we end it, we'll see that we're getting access there. So now the other great thing is, so I'm looking at the proxy logs right now. As with our previous implementations, this is all cached. So every time we do the calls again, we can actually see that it has not had to do another lookup. It already has it from in memory space, and we're cooking across account in Envoy proxy and AWS Lambda. Awesome. Well, that's all I have for this today. It looks like we're at time. So thank you so much for coming and listening to me talk about both AWS Lambda invocation in Gloo Edge, and also more specifically the updates that we've put in for 1.10.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. For those of you attending, if you have any questions, be sure to drop them here in the chat room or post them on our general Slack channel for SoloCon. Also, check out the other tracks for our next sessions by clicking the reception button at the top left of your window. But thanks for attending today, and thanks, Nathan, for a great demo.